as mentioned upstairs, what is the Pilgrimage of Discovery? As we've mentioned, it's a week-long trip, all-expense-paid trip to Constantinople, which is supported by the Archons of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. And it is an opportunity for young adults between the ages of 23 and 30 to learn about the history and the current issues of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, but also reconnect with the past of the roots of Orthodoxy. And again, this program we're excited to share is going to be continuing for its 4th year in summer of 2026, and we will actually be having 18 young adults come, so increasing our numbers, which is amazing. So our itinerary at a glance, again, Helena beautifully and Jeff beautifully organized all of this for us. Helena, you need to take credit where credit is due. I'm glad to give it for you. But as you can see, each day is jam-packed with opportunities to reconnect with our faith, from visiting Fanillas con Flagelum, which I spoke about earlier upstairs, where that beautiful hymn Ecumenical was written, to Ios Dimitrios, which has a miracle-working spring, which I'll speak a little bit more about later in my presentation, to having a Paraklesis, celebrating Holy Liturgy twice with His All Holiness on several feast days, visiting the Hagia Sophia, seeing the jewels of iconography in Chora Church. As you can see, every single day, Halki Seminary. We had something to do and something for us to take away from visiting each of these sites and walking the paths of the saints and the martyrs that came before us. So, a beautiful itinerary that we walk away learning so much and feeling so much from. So in terms of the key takeaways of the Pilgrimage of Discovery, and sorry this keeps chirping, I'll try to move this a little bit less. There's several different components of this, and as I mentioned, one of the priests of the Fanar said that you come to Constantinople not to discover anything, but rather to reconnect with yourself. So that was a key takeaway and something that really resonated with me during my time. So we're reconnecting with the pillars of our rich Orthodox Christian faith heritage. We're visiting historical sites of Constantinople, many of which I have beautiful pictures of, which I can't wait to share with you. We learn and kind of bear witness to the experience and the persecution of the Roman Greek community. Many of those elements that Archon Cronus mentioned, we saw firsthand, and some of those I will share with you today. We get to engage firsthand with these challenges that are still facing the Ecumenical Patriarchate. And last but not least, we discover fellowship and the hope for the Orthodox Christians in Constantinople and Asia Minor. And we also reconnect and gain fellowship with 15 other young adults from across the United States. I like to say I have 15 new brothers and sisters who I can go see across the country that had this beautiful experience that bonded us all together. So in terms of looking at the pillars of Orthodox traditions, as shown in the itinerary, there were so many different places that we got to visit that again represent these beautiful traditions. From touring St. George Cathedral at the Fanar, where we venerated the treasures of the reliquary. I got to venerate relics from the 3 hierarchs. I'm waiting if I'm getting anything wrong, but no. But that was a huge highlight for me. Getting to venerate, as you saw in the video, the Pillar of Flagellation, which I'll talk a little bit more about. That Christ touch was one of the most moving experiences and takeaways for me from this trip. We also visited, as I mentioned, several miracle-working springs. This is Ios Dimitrios. And what I really love about this particular area, and this particular site, was the fact that, in a world where we're, as young Orthodox Christians, and the Orthodox Christians of Constantinople are facing persecution, this is actually a site that brings us together. Dr. John Fotopoulos, who's a fellow Archon, who was with us, told us that this site, the water has worked many miracles for Orthodox, but also for Muslims alike in Constantinople and Turkey. So it is a point that we can kind of come together in a place where we're frequently not coming together. So I found that unity through this site was very, very meaningful. And as you can see here, we got a chance to worship with His All Holiness. This is me getting some grace from him after celebrating the feast day of the Transfiguration, which was so beautiful to be in his presence and to worship with him before our audience at the end of the week. This was really a beautiful way for us to start to get to know him firsthand. So it was a real honor to get to be there with him. And then, as I mentioned too, some of the most stunning iconography. This is the Anastasia icon that I mentioned upstairs. Again, bearing my name and knowing that this icon represents our faith and the hope of the resurrection, getting to stand in front of that and just be in awe of how this iconography has stood strong, has given strength to the faithful and fellow pilgrims throughout the years, and continues to remain strong in a church that has now been converted into a mosque, is something that really resonated with me And again, I know this image and the meaning of this image resonates with the Rome Greek community who remain there today. And the last image here that I want to briefly give a nod to is here. This is Father Hieronimo, who was our guide through the Fanar. I absolutely adored him. He's the one that said that we reconnect with ourselves when we go to Constantinople. What he's holding here, in the room that we're in, is where the chrism is made for all Greek Orthodox Christians. So the chrism that you were made with, your grandparents were made with, or that were blessed with, pardon me, I was blessed with, and God willing, your children's children and generations to come that were blessed with. These are the casts where each of those drops of chrism were made here. So it's a beautiful image to show. This is sitting right here, the future of Orthodox Christianity right here as well. To Aya Irini was the fact that this was one of the sites where St. John Chrysostom preached in the early church. So getting to walk in his steps, getting to see where he preached the gospel early on, as we were a fledgling religious community, was super meaningful and super impactful. And again, we had Dr. John Fatopoulos with us, telling us and teaching us about all of these sites as we went along as well. And in addition to these beautiful buildings, as I mentioned, this is the pillar of flagellation, where Christ received in his passion the 39 lashes. Where my hands are shown right here is where it is said through tradition that his hands were shackled and kept there. And let that sink in. We get a chance to touch where our Lord touched. As a young adult, I can't even describe and put into words, as that video showed, what my feelings were. It's so powerful, and it's something that brings us closer to Christ. And again, this whole experience brings us closer to Christ, but for me, this particular moment, engaging with this object was, again, I can't thank you enough for giving me that experience. It's very meaningful. So it was beautiful to get to be near that object, and I pray, God willing, that you all get to go and venerate this beautiful, beautiful relic as well. And here is another beautiful and difficult relic that I do want to discuss. These are the old doors and gates to the Patriarchate. And you might be asking yourself, why are these draped in black? And this is, again, another moment of beauty and martyrdom and challenge that we had to engage here during the trip. These are the gates on April 10th in 1821, and we as Greeks know why 1821 is a very important and impactful year. It was the year that we began our fight for freedom and independence from the Ottoman Empire. But that day, after celebrating a beautiful Paschal Vesper service and singing Christos Anesti, Patriarch Gregory V, after preceding this, there had been several riots within Constantinople amongst the Greeks and the Turks. And thinking back in the day, we not only had our patriarch represent us from a religious purpose from the perspective of the Turkish government, but he was also the ethnarch, so the head of the ethnic community there. So after this beautiful Pascha celebration, in retaliation for these riots that had occurred, he was taken from St. George Cathedral, which is just steps away. He was bound and hung and left for several days on these gates. So when we as young people in that video were coming to venerate these gates, we were venerating a site of a martyr. His relics were then days later thrown into the sea, rescued, as we learned while we were there, by Ukrainians, that eventually brought his relics back to the Metropolitan Church in Athens, which you can go visit and venerate today. So for us, that is showing martyrdom, the martyrdom specifically of our patriarchs in action, and really left us with a feeling of, when we look at Patriarch Bartholomew, how difficult of a job he has on so many different levels, knowing the historicity of the role that he is doing today. And as Archon Cronus beautifully discussed, there are several challenges that are facing the Ecumenical Patriarchate. Restrictive laws allowing us not to be able to worship in places that are our inheritance, that belong to Orthodox Christians, that were created by Orthodox Christians, like the Hagia Sophia, knowing that we can't own property or have that accessible to us, having our clergy not be able to go out in their full vestments. And I see you there beautifully seated in your vestments, Father. Just bearing in mind that, our brothers and sisters that are in the Fanar are unable to openly share who they are and share their faith on their sleeve was something really difficult. We even had a situation at the Hagia Sophia and even at Florida Church where we were advised for our safety to hide our crosses. Yeah. Can we imagine walking down the streets of Chicago and being told, hey, you're a Christian, you can't have your cross out? I cannot fathom that. So being able to go on this trip and feel that and experience that, man, I will never take for granted coming home and understanding that wearing this and showing this publicly, I will never take that for granted again. And And I continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in the Room community who are there, who face this every single day. And continuing on with a little bit more about the persecution we face, like, again, I mentioned the 70th anniversary of the Istanbul pogroms. Look it up, do some research, teach your kids about this. I did not know about this until we went on this trip. The scars of this continue to remain. As I mentioned in my remarks upstairs, this was one of the beautiful icons that remains in another church of St. George. It's a very common name for a specific reason of many of these parishes in Constantinople. But as you can see here, the Panagia and Christ have had their eyes scratched out. This is a living relic and a living scar from those pogroms 70 years ago. Can we imagine coming into our beautiful churches and seeing this? I couldn't. I just could not believe it. It was a moment that simply just took my breath away. And viewing here, these are the beautiful classrooms of Halki Seminary that Jeff mentioned has been closed for over 50 years. They are waiting, these seats are waiting for young men and young students to come and learn and train as seminarians. This was also an area that was used for a high school at one point. So they are just waiting for young people to come and be allowed back in. Of course, I think this image simply speaks for itself, but as Jeff showed, we showed one perspective of this beautiful icon of the Panagia. This is the angle that you get to see on the second floor. So being so limited to see her and see Christ, to me, it's a bittersweet image, knowing that you can't see her from that main level of where we used to worship anymore. But I also think it's a very triumphant image that she's remaining there with Christ, continuing to protect this temple. And one day I pray, saving it for those of us, the faithful, that will be able, and God willing, to come and worship again. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful but bittersweet image. And this last image here, you're like, why are you showing us a sign up here? So this is from Taksim Square, which we visited on our first night during the pilgrimage. This is now a bustling commercial area. Think about our Michigan Avenue downtown. This is an area where we used to have many Greek-owned businesses and Greek-owned homes in this community. And after the pogrom 70 years ago, this is what's left of it. This is all that is left. So for us visiting, and Helena so beautifully told us the first night to look around from what we were about to go to dinner, we were looking around. This is all that is left of our community there. So let that sink in. And think about our Greek town. What if our Greek town was erased overnight? I cannot imagine that, I cannot fathom that. So seeing these scars and seeing these relics of this persecution, I think, as a young adult coming away from this trip, just emboldened me to want to come home and speak, as I am to you today, about what is going on in Constantinople and why this is all our fight to continue advocating on their behalf here in the United States and to keep their memory going so that we don't go away and we aren't completely erased from a place that we so beautifully worshipped and lived for so many centuries. Greeks that we met who were so hospitable to us, they became our family. This is Archon Laki, and this is Kyria Eli. And Kyria Eli is someone I want to briefly tell you about. She has such a beautiful story, and she, in my mind, both of these people encapsulate the resilience of the Rome Greek community. So this church, remember I showed you that icon of the Panagia that had been impacted by the pogroms? This is actually the church where that icon resides. It's just right back there. And Kyria Eli, I'm so glad we had the opportunity to meet her, to see where these old neighborhoods, these primarily old Rome Greek neighborhoods used to be. But Kyria Eli has given up her home. She donated her condominium. If I'm getting anything wrong, Helena, correct me. But she has donated her personal property to the Ecumenical Patriarchate. That is a huge sacrifice. She lives on a cot in the narthex of this church, and she is the sole caregiver and watcher over of this church. She experienced the pogroms firsthand. She lost relatives. She saw the ugly impact of what that attack did. And she is still standing here, God willing, for many more years, and she is the sole beacon of light that maintains this church. So we were very honored to have met her. And again, we promised her, we said, Kyria Eli, when we come home, we're telling everybody about you. And she was so humble and so beautiful in her way. But these are the Rome Greeks, and these are who are maintaining our faith so many miles away. But I also want to talk to you, I know we talked about very deep and very intense subjects, which we have to when we're in this part of the world as Orthodox Christians. But I do want to talk a little bit about the light and the fellowship and the hope that we walked away with. This was our group on our way up to Halkey Seminary. You can see how excited we were to go and see the beautiful church and the beautiful school there that is waiting. This is a quick photo, and it turns into a video, but as I mentioned in my remarks, this was the moment when we got to kind of off the cuff participate and dance in front of Patriarch Bartholomew, as well as you can kind of see here, the Armenian Patriarch here as well. So we performed a group dance in front of two patriarchs, something again that I will never forget. And they were so wonderful and humble and kind to us as well. Here we are worshiping. This was our first day worshiping at a liturgy in St. George of the Fanar. And these are more beautiful photos. As I mentioned upstairs, this is the future of the Rome Greek community. These are the beautiful children that go to camp every single year. It's like a Fanari camp abroad as well. But they sang beautifully, they engaged with their culture. They were so present and quiet and pious at church. I was so impressed with all of them, how they continue to engage with their faith. So we got a chance to meet them. And then, of course, ultimately, we got a chance to have our own audience with Patriarch Bartholomew, which, watching that video again, I can't believe that happened. That's just the most simple way I can put it. I can't believe that happened. And some people have asked me, what did you think of the Patriarch? What did you take away from him? Well, we were all very nervous, I would say, for each of the 15 of us, like brothers and siblings, we were kind of like boosting each other up as we were going to approach him, one by one. And I was very nervous. But once we got up there, we each brought him, and this is something beautiful for any young adults that are looking, or young adults in your life that want to participate, you bring him a specialized gift. And the two gifts that I brought him represented my families. One was a photo of my family, and a couple of them are here, so thank you for being here. And the other book was a signed book. It was about the Greektown Chicago community, but it was signed by several of my brothers and sisters in Yale from across the Chicagoland area. And you can see how happy he was. He instantly put me at ease. He was so loving, so kind, so gentle, and you can feel his faith just radiate from him. He puts you at ease. And I think in this moment, while I'm doing my thing, I'm talking, but just looking at him, I think these simple gifts that me and the 15 other amazing brothers and sisters of mine brought him showed us that we haven't forgotten him. And as I remarked above, that his fight is our fight too now. He welcomed us like a papu. He's very much like a papu, like a grandfather that wants to welcome us into the fold. So if there's anything I can leave you with today, this trip, we cannot say it enough, has changed our lives. It has emboldened us to continue becoming leaders in our church, slowly but surely. We have a lot of room to grow and a lot of people to learn from. And I hope to learn from many of you in this room as we continue our fight to maintain orthodoxy. But I think the key thing I want to leave you with is that these are the people that we should be continuing to keep in our prayers. Panayotadze, His All Holiness, please keep him in your prayers. Please keep the clergy and laity in the Fanar in your prayers. Please keep the Rome Greek community and their future and their children in your prayers as well. Because if we give up this fight, there is no going back. We have to maintain our love of orthodoxy, our ardent support of the faith and the Mother Church where it began. And like I said, God willing, I hope you all get to go there someday. But please, if I can leave you with anything, please continue keeping them in your prayers. And please encourage your young adults in your life, 23 to 30, who are active in the faith, to please apply for this program. They know not what is ahead of them. I surely did not. I mean, we had materials, we prepared the best that we could, but there is really nothing that can prepare you for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning.